Hi everyone, it's me again. Today I'm going to read to you the first chapter of my book, Wildmoore, Wrath of Zane. I hope you guys will enjoy. Chapter 1, The Day in the Life of Natalie Verro. An alarm clock blared out the song Can't Stop the Feeling from Justin Timberlake, awaking a tired 13-year-old Natalie Verro. It was 5 o'clock a.m., a usual time for the young girl to wake up, take a shower, get dressed, and help her wheelchair-bound aunt, Mari Verro, make breakfast before heading off to school. Natalie is a pretty girl with long brunette hair, green and hazel eyes. She was born with heterochromia, freckles on her cheeks, and a heart-shaped birthmark on her right forearm. Natalie is an intelligent girl with a thirst for knowledge, but due to this, she lacked any friends. However, it was not all she lacked. When Natalie was 5 months old, she lost her mother, Grace Verro, in a car accident while she and her aunt were on the way home from a holiday party, which is how Mari ended up in a wheelchair. Her whole life, Natalie wondered what her mother was like, and thankfully, Mari was able to tell her niece anything she needed to know about her mother. However, Natalie only knew the little things about her mom. Grace was kind, never afraid to speak her mind, loved to eat cheddar potato chips, hated liars and cheats, and lastly of all, she loved her one and only daughter more than her own life. Growing up, Natalie's life without a mother and only a wheelchair-bound aunt to take care of her was never going to be an easy thing to process because kids at her school, more often the group of mean girls, would mock her and tell her things about her mother that Natalie knew weren't true. She would even protest to the girls that their lives were anything but true. That didn't seem to stop them, though, and they would continue on their cruel words. After Natalie was finished with her shower, she changed it into a gray t-shirt, a purple and black long-sleeve flannel shirt to wear over it, and black jeans, and put on her thick gray framed glasses before she proceeded to blow dry her hair and fix it into a fishtail braid. Natalie met with her Aunt Mari in the kitchen. She was a beautiful woman with blue eyes, dark blonde shoulder-length hair, and a small scar on her left cheek, which Natalie assumed that she had gotten from the car accident. "Morning, beautiful," Mari chirped to her niece. "Morning, Aunt Mari," Natalie reciprocated with a weary smile, and helped her aunt prepare breakfast, which was a ham and cheese omelet. Mari and Natalie loved cooking or baking anything together, which is one of their many moments of bonding. Surely their apartment kitchen is small, but their apartment at the Cowboy Town apartment community was home to them for as long as Natalie could remember. Other inhabitants at the apartment complex were nice enough, while others, in Natalie's opinion, were a bit shady. Natalie, as she and Mari were making the omelets, she hummed a lullaby she remembered her aunt had sung to her when she was younger. A lullaby that goes, "The roar of the lion, the wind of the owl's wing, courage and love will be your most cherished thing. Listen closely to the voice of your spirit, because with only its softest whisper, you will be able to hear it. With the wonder of the land that is beyond our tree, one day you will be who you truly meant to be." Maury smiled when she heard her niece humming this song, and said with a nostalgic grin on her face, "Oh, I haven't heard that song in forever." "Yeah, it's been stuck in my head recently, but I can't seem to shake it off," Natalie said before finishing her omelet, and Maury finishing hers, as the aunt-niece duo sat down in the dining room to eat. As the two were dining, Maury asked, "Did you have any good dreams last night?" More often than not, Natalie would have dreams about talking animals, and for the majority of all the talking animals were courageous and good-hearted. So Natalie replied, "Well, it's nothing new. I dreamt about the talking animals again, and they all said something about protecting their world and said that one will bring peace to their world again." "Strange. Any reason why you would dream of something like that?" Maury asked before taking a bite of her omelet. "I don't know. But it was just a dream, so I doubt it was anything real. Besides, talking animals only exist in animated or fantasy movies anyways," Natalie replied before taking a bite of her own omelet. Then, after an hour and a half of talking and eating their breakfast, Natalie looked at the clock to see it was 6:30 a.m. She took this as her cue to get ready for school. She slipped her colorful patched book bag over her right shoulder and put on her red Converse sneakers. Then, within 10 minutes before her school bus arrives, she's ready for school. She rushed to her aunt, kissed her cheek, and said, "Bye, Aunt Maury. I'll see you after school." "Have a good day, sweetheart." "Learn something," Maury shouted. "Always," Natalie shouted back before exiting her apartment and rushed down the staircase to head to the bus stop. Other kids from the apartments were already aboard the bus, and thankfully, Natalie was one of the 3 kids to get on. While Natalie was always ready and excited to head to school, she knew it was going to be another day of dreadful torment by her peers. Ones that she wished she would never see every day. In William Shakespeare's classic love story, Romeo and Juliet, 2 of their families were at war due to their ongoing feud. Can anybody tell me the names of the 2 families? 8th period English teacher, Miss Caroline Danford, asked her class of bored 7th graders. Miss Danford was a young woman with long auburn hair fixed in a ponytail and shimmery green eyes, and was wearing a Kelly green blouse, brown jeans, black framed glasses, and wore her favorite white watch with blue polka dots. Miss Danford was a dedicated teacher despite her young age, and wanted to get her class excited, but so far, the only student in her class that had ever been engaged with her lessons was Natalie Verro. It was only her 3rd year teaching at Trinity Middle School, and while she appreciates at least one student paying attention to her lessons, Stanford couldn't help but feel disappointed in her students. Come on, you guys. We've studied this after reading a few chapters of the play," Miss Stanford said to her class. Natalie, not wanting Miss Danford to lose any patience with her peers, raised her hand. Miss Danford called out, noticing Natalie's hand raised. "Yes, Natalie." Natalie lowered her hand back down and answered, "The families that are at war are the Montagues and the Capulets." "Very good. Miss Danford said, with a smile. One girl about Natalie's age, Laurel Jeffers, scoffed and whispered to her friend sitting next to her, "She's such a nerdy geek for knowing this." Laurel was a pretty girl with shoulder-length black hair, blue eyes, a beauty mark on the right side of her nose, and often wore any shade of pink shirts, her signature black leather jacket, mini skirts, mostly the magenta skirt, and knee-high pink boots with black laces. Laurel's reputation at school was known as a popular mean girl who preferred to get out of trouble with only a slap on the wrist. Miss Danford looked over at Natalie with a dismayed look and said, "Miss Jeffers, do you have something you would like to share with the rest of the class?" "Oh, no, Miss Danford, it's nothing important," Laurel tried to deny. "Don't bother lying to me, Miss Jeffers. You cannot treat Natalie with this type of disrespect," Miss Danford scolded, with her arms crossed and staring daggers at Laurel. "Miss Danford, she was just a freaky know-it-all with no mom or dad. For all we know, her parents dumped her onto the side of the road if they knew she's a mutant," Laurel rambled, causing Natalie to sink in her seat. Ever since the school was notified about Natalie's situation, which concerns her mother dying and her aunt being in a wheelchair, Laurel often picks any opportunity to make fun of Natalie before, during, or after school, not caring about how Natalie would feel. However, Miss Danford wouldn't tolerate it and said, "Miss Jeffers, Natalie's family life is none of your business, or anyone else's but her own. If you continue on with this behavior, you'll get detention. Is that understood?" Not wanting to get in trouble, Laurel muttered begrudgingly, "Yes, Miss Danford." Natalie was quietly grateful that her teacher would come to her defense, but knew that Miss Danford couldn't defend her for the rest of the spring semester. Suddenly, the school bell rang, which meant school was let out. Everyone hurriedly gathered their things and rushed out of the door, while Natalie, who was never in a rush, put her test book and binder in her book bag. As she got up, Miss Danford asked, "Natalie, can you hang back for a second?" Natalie immediately felt tense that her teacher wanted to talk to her after class. However, her worries melted away when Miss Danford said, "Relax, you're not in trouble. I just want to talk to you about your creative writing assignments." Natalie walked up to her teacher with her book bag over her shoulder and asked, Is there something not grammatically correct in my writing?" Miss Danford chuckled in amusement and said, "No, sweetie, everything is great. But I am curious about the characters. And all of them involve talking animals, and all were different animals living in one forest. Where did you produce stories like that?" "It all came from the dreams I've been having for a while. I just want to let out what I saw by writing it down. Thank God there's a creative assignment in your class, Miss Danford." Natalie answered with a sincere tone in her voice. Miss Danford had always known that Natalie was a bright student, not to mention creative. But she could only sense that there was something holding her back, and more often assumed it was Natalie's situation. Even after Natalie was done with her assignment, she would pull out her leather-bounded journal and just stare at it with a saddened look. "Natalie, you and I both know that you're a promising student, one of the best ones I've seen in the school so far. But you can't keep letting yourself get swallowed in a void of sadness. And don't let what Laurel says affect you. if you have stories that you wanted to write down, hopefully there's something with more meaning. Hopefully something with more meaning, more characters, and more heart, then do it. You got a writer's touch, Natalie. I can see it, so let it out every once in a while. Miss Danford said, earning a small smile from her favorite student. Natalie hadn't given this much thought recently because she was mostly focused on her aunt, school, and more often than not, wondering what kind of person her mother was. You should probably head home and say hi to your aunt for me, Miss Danford said. I will, Natalie said with a nod, and headed out of the classroom and to the bus stop with her teacher's words of encouragement reading in her ears. Instead of taking a school bus home, Natalie took the public bus to Bliss Books and Bindery. 13-year-old girl would always go there after school to do two things: work on her homework and unwind by reading a book. She got off the bus and headed into the store where manager Kyle Parker was at the counter where he was helping a customer. He looked up to see Natalie walk in and gave her a friendly smile and a wave. The 13-year-old reciprocated his gesture. Kyle Parker is a handsome young man in his early 30s, with brunette hair and green eyes. He wore a light purple shirt with the bookstore's logo on it, as well as his lucky red bandana around his neck. He met Natalie when she was only 10 years old to hide out from the bullies after running after her. Kyle immediately took pity on the young girl and told her she could hide out, but only for her to promise it so she could call her aunt and let her know where she was. It was during that time that he saw stacks of books surrounding Natalie as she sat on the floor and read a Nancy Drew book. It was there that he knew this girl was special, having a great eye for good books. Ever since then, Natalie had been a frequent visitor to the bookstore. And by the looks of it, Kyle was the only friend Natalie had outside of school. Natalie was able to find her spot where she could do her homework, a purple beanbag chair that Kyle had left for her. Natalie sat down and immediately got to work on the three subjects for her homework: English, math, and biology. Kyle walked by and saw the homework Natalie had. He playfully joked, "Oof, biology. That must be a nightmare to figure out." Natalie looked up with a grin on her face and said, "Nothing I couldn't manage, minus what Laurel said in English class today." Kyle leaned against a bookshelf and asked, "Rough day of school?" With Laurel being there, definitely. I don't know how she knew about my family situation, but she took it as an opportunity to make up lies about my mom and dad by saying they abandoned me on the side of the road, Natalie said, and continued to work on her homework. Like the school, Kyle was aware of Natalie's family situation, where her aunt was in a wheelchair for life. Her mother died from a car accident 13 years ago, and her father being out of the picture. Being raised by a grandmother himself, Kyle understood Natalie's pain, which was partly the reason why he let her hang out in the store so often. He walked up to his young friend before getting down on her level. He gently stopped Natalie from doing any further homework, causing the girl to set her work aside before Kyle replied, Natalie, don't let what Laurel said get to you. Your family life is only your business. But she certainly acted like it was her business. To make matters worse, she made up these lies about me. And she's not going to stop until she sees me break. It's even worse in class after I answered a question right. Natalie expressed and tucked a loose strand of her hair behind her ear. You're too smart for your own good. And Laurel was just jealous of the amazing person that you are. You can't let anyone crush your spirit like Laurel was trying to do, Kyle said, with a small smile. Natalie wasn't sure how lucky she got to have a friend like Kyle. She understood that he was not in her age range, but Natalie could see that Kyle cared about her as if she were his own little sister. Natalie smiled at him and asked, "What would I do without you?" "Crash and burn," Kyle joked, causing him and Natalie to share a laugh. "Now finish your homework," Kyle said as he playfully ruffled Natalie's hair. And the 13-year-old girl continued on with her homework. Kyle then walked away to do inventory with a warm feeling in his heart. For the past 3 years, he really cared about Natalie despite her situation. And although he knew her aunt was a wonderful person, he couldn't help but worry about what would happen if her aunt were no longer around, and worried who would look after Natalie then. And even then, he only hoped for the best because Kyle knew that Natalie deserved a good life. Okay, everyone, that's the end of chapter 1. I'll keep you posted on the reading of chapter 2 really soon. Bye!